One, two, three.
Oppo taco is a slang terminology that means opposite field home run, and it was a word that really didn't exist, back in the early 2000s. It did, but it was very niche. And I remember a guy by the name of Kit Pello. He played, he had a career minor leaguer with the Colorado Rockies, and he was one of my teammates in Seattle, and he kept on saying Oppo taco. That kind of stuck with me, throughout the next 10 years of my life after professional baseball. So we started originally as a clothing brand, and we're exuding the culture of baseball, and basically selling an apparel. And that's how it originally started. And thankfully, guys like Justin Morneau and Jesse Crane, they helped me start this whole project up. And to this day, we didn't know where we were going in terms of the future longevity of apparel. And we started making the necessary moves to kind of pivot out of the apparel side of things and do more content-based and cultural-based of baseball. Where we're going after this now, and what we're creating, is a program called OTU, which stands for Oppo Taco U. I have a very unique perspective, first of all. Not a lot of people have played on the junior national team, in the 90s, playing on the senior national team in the 2000s, and then coaching the junior national team 18 under from basically 2010 to 2023. So I've built a unique perspective as a player coming through the development system in Canada, but not only coming through the system, but also now teaching it. And for me, that unique perspective has given me insight of the problems that need to be addressed. How are we doing things as a whole community? Is it sustainable? Is there longevity in it? And the way we're doing it today, I believe there's a lot of faults in it, right? There's a lot of holes that need to be fixed before we can move forward as a community. And these are the problems that I'm essentially addressing with OTU. Is I'm able to create an online curriculum that's gonna develop and help the grassroots of baseball, not only in Canada, but in the US and in the world, because there are places in the world where they don't have access to the knowledge that we have. Right? So essentially what we're trying to do as a brand is grow the game. We want to grow the game of baseball so that it's taught properly at the fundamental level. Especially nowadays with technology increasing, what we're seeing in the baseball world is a lot of these data analysis. So analytics in general. You could get analytics, which is great. It gives you data. And what you do with that data is basically how we're teaching right now. But the problem with that is there's only the physical aspect of baseball that we're really focusing on. How to enhance the physical specimen of baseball. That's all we're doing right now as a whole. There's a big lack of the education standpoint of what we're doing. Are we teaching these kids that baseball is more than just having your own profile or maxing out on your exit velocity? Like that, those are all necessities in baseball development, but they're missing a huge fundamental point, which is the foundation and the education side of baseball, the strategy side of baseball, how baseball needs to be played at every single level, right? Because that's what's missing in terms of kind of like that grassroots development. And where we're focused on is that grassroots. And when we talk about grassroots, we're talking about, at the beginning, if your kid ends up playing baseball, who's coaching that kid? It's usually volunteer dads, right? They're creating the path for that baseball development. And part of the reason isn't the intentions that these dads are giving, because we love them, we need them. We need the dads that volunteer, that want to contribute, but the problem is we're not providing the resources or necessary resources for them to thrive in that situation. We're teaching the development and fundamentals of baseball so that by the time they're older, we're aiding in that area. And I'm basically, from the larger picture, I'm creating a solution to the problem that I see. And most people don't see this problem because they don't have the perspective I have from coaching the highest level of amateur baseball in Canada. It's like, what are we doing as a whole that needs to be changed? And as we do that, we become more relevant in the game, because now we're not focusing on, oh, I need to sell a product, which most businesses do. The first thing they do is, I have a product, how can I sell this? Now the whole mindset becomes about making money as opposed to creating a solution to a problem. First thing I had to do in order to get the ball rolling for OTU was develop and invest in a team. I think it goes back to baseball. It's like during my career as a baseball player, I played between, college and professional baseball, almost 13 seasons. And, we won 10 or 11 championships within that 13 seasons. And the kind of common ground I got from those championship teams were everything is done with a team. You win as a team, you lose as a team. And there are things that I don't want to do, but sometimes I have to do it because it's going to enhance the team. And that's kind of like baseball. It's like sometimes you're in a situation where you want to swing the bat, but the situation calls where you have to sacrifice yourself and move the runner over. But in the end, you score 2 runs or whatever and you win the ball game. You've contributed to that whole pie, even though you're not that hero that day. You're a hero in a different way. And that's the same metaphor of baseball that I'm talking about is now, in order for me to launch something called OTU, what did my past life teach me in baseball? It taught me how to deal with adversity, deal with failure, and ultimately build as a team. So for me, in order for me to execute my vision, I needed to invest in a team. And the first guy I invested in was a guy by the name of Chris Begg. Chris Begg is such an important piece of this whole equation because he's a 2-time Olympian, 2-time World Baseball Classic participant, pitched in some big games for Team Canada, played at the highest level of AAA with the San Francisco Giants, was a teammate of mine. I've coached with Chris on the junior national team for the last 10 years or so. So I know kind of like what he's about and what value he brings. And in his past life, after he was finished his baseball career, he was a teacher. So for me, if I'm creating an online curriculum, I got to invest in a guy with the skill set of baseball, one, but not only the skill set of baseball, is the ability to teach it. It's just not only Beggar that, becomes an important part. Guys like Rene Tassoni, he's a guy that played professional baseball at the highest level. He has Major League Baseball experience, and he was a big-time prospect. So for me, he was a guy that was out of the game at the time, and I called him up and, asked him what he was doing. And ironically, he answered because he said the same thing. He's like, I haven't heard from Cho in, years. What's this guy up to? There must be something. I pitched the idea to him and it aligned perfectly with what he wanted to do because what he was seeing back home, he's from Coquitlam, BC, it's the same thing. It's like, how do I coach coaches efficiently? Because a lot of the baseball, people ask, oh, can you coach my kid one-on-one? And you donate your time and you get paid for that interaction. But the problem with that is how much effect are you actually doing on the community when you're spending hours and hours with individuals when there's hundreds of thousands of kids that need development, right? So Tassoni was on the same line of thinking when it comes to how do I be more impactful with my baseball skill set. Jason Willow, he just finished a 5-year career at UC Santa Barbara, which is a top-notch Division I baseball program in California. So the timing worked out where, I presented what I wanted to do. And, again, I coached Jason Willow at the World Junior Championships in 2017 in Thunder Bay. He was a kid I coached. And now I'm asking, hey, what are you doing in terms of life? I got something in the books that you might be really interested in. And, as soon as I told him that, he was sold on the idea. And he's become such an invaluable piece to the whole equation. We got Marcus Connect. He played AA with the Toronto Blue Jays, one of the biggest Toronto Blue Jays power prospects in the, early 2010s and on. And he's an incredible talent that, has been successful at every level from college to professional baseball. I go on with Kellen Deglin. He's, playing in WBC now as a catcher with Team Canada. And he's a guy that was with the Toronto Blue Jays and, New York Yankees at the highest level. I needed a catching guy. And he fell into our lap because, I've always stayed in touch, even through COVID, with Kellen. Just had nothing to do with baseball. It's funny how the way it works. It's like you just stay communicated with these guys and you wonder why, in 2020, I was having long conversations with Kellen Deglin about life, and then fast forward 3 years later, he's my guy because I look in the past and I'm like, who's my catching guy? So if you want to get to the big areas where you're moving communities, you got to do it with the teamwork, So from a baseball standpoint, this team we've created in that context was incredible. They all buy into how can we help youth baseball development. That's it, right? And that's why it's like when everybody buys into that, it makes things so much easier. And you're able to create something that has way more legs than you've ever even thought of, because it's a collective effort where it's energy that's put into the same common goal.
Speed.
Yeah.
Reveal, take 2.
Speed was it.
On mark.
My name is Marcus Connect.
Nick Halkitis.
David Van Ostrand.
Tyler Cowan.
Jason Willow.
Chris Begg.
Renee Tassoni.
The reason why I'm here is some sort of credibility.
Yeah, the only reason he's here is because he slipped into the big leagues for 21 days and is finished.
60.